Last night, a common theme returned to the Mets. They lose the game because a starting pitcher puts them in a hole.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. COM Podcast covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find some of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the editor-in-chief. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Go to www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. Now, the New York Mets dropped their game against the Padres on Wednesday night, and it was a game where, once again, you get a bad start, and that is what doomed the Mets. Ultimately, it was really one mistake. David Peterson serves up a grand slam to Manny Machado, and that cripples the Mets in this game. I thought overall, the lineup really did fight hard to get back in it. I thought the Mets played a pretty solid game defensively. It just wasn't enough, and if this wasn't September 17th when the game was played, and if there wasn't only 10 games left in this season, it would have been a loss that I don't even really think you would be too frustrated with, to be completely honest. The Mets fought hard in this game. This was not like some of the other losses we have seen, like those losses against the Rangers, where the offense was inept and then the bullpen blew a game. I mean, this was a game where David Peterson, I think, pitched a little bit better than the box score would suggest, but he had the one bad inning, and typically for Peterson, that bad inning has come in the fourth. Today was in the fifth inning, and they had a big hole to climb out of, but the Mets were really close to tying this game. To go through the whole line of events here, first inning, Peterson gives up a run on a sacrifice fly. Not much there as far as the Padres stringing together a big rally, just a sac fly, and then he gets out of it. Pete Alonso ties the game with his 36th home run of the season, third straight game with the homer for Pete, so good to see him getting hot. Second inning, David Peterson gives up a couple of soft hit singles that result in a run. But then he gets a double play ball, able to get out of the inning without giving up any more damage. Third and fourth innings were good. Starling Marte, then at the bottom of the fourth, tied the game with a solo homer of his own. And then came that fifth inning. Peterson hits Jake Cronenworth. He gets an out on a sac bunt, gets ahead of Fernando Tatis in a 1-2 count, and then loses him, issues a walk. Luis Ariz lays down a bunt and is able to get on for a base hit. And then you had the bases loaded for Machado. He falls behind in the count, so that was the first mistake that he made. So he had to pitch from down 3-1, able to get Machado to foul one off, and then he throws a curveball, and then that wasn't even a horrible pitch. It wasn't a hanging curveball that was sitting middle, that was just on a tee for Machado. But Machado's a good hitter. The curveball still got plenty of plate. It was down in the zone. He saw it, knew it was coming, went down and got it, and then there you go. 6 runs for the Padres that you're trying to now climb your way out of a 4-run hole from the grand slam. And credit to the Mets, they got pretty close. Soto hit a home run with 2 outs in the bottom of the 5th inning, tied his career high that he set last year with the Yankees at 41 homers. It's pretty wild that even though if you look at OPS and WRC plus and WAR, last season was still a much better year for Soto. But if you look at the counting stats, home runs, he's there. RBIs, he's getting close. Juan Soto's numbers are not that far off what we saw last year with the Yankees. So he really is having a great season. 7th inning, Francisco Alvarez hits a leadoff homer, which cut the Padres lead to 2. Cedric Mullins draws a walk after Francisco Lindor popped out. The Padres went to Mason Miller to try to get Juan Soto out, and Soto nearly ties the game. He must have missed the foul ball down the left field line by inches, maybe a foot. It was so close to being 6-6, and then all of a sudden the New York Mets could have rallied their way back, won the game, and kept that momentum. And what was even more impressive about the near miss of a home run, 102.6 miles per hour was the fastball from Mason Miller that was located on the outer half. It was not a bad pitch at all, but Soto got to it and just a smidge late from keeping that thing fair and flipping the game back. But it does go foul. He ends up striking out on a good slider, and Pete Alonso strikes out as well. Ryan Stanek gave up a solo homer to Ramon Laureano in the top of the ninth inning. That was after Ryan Helsley had a scoreless frame, not one that inspires too much confidence, as the ball will still hit pretty hard against him, but a 1-2-3 inning nonetheless. The Mets in the bottom of the ninth inning, again, this is back to the fight that they showed. Brett Beatty gets a single. Francisco Lindor with 2 outs after Francisco Alvarez and Mark Vientos each grounded it out. He draws a walk to get Soto to the plate as the tying run, and Soto just comes up short, hits a line drive right back to the pitcher, and that's the ball game. But again, I feel like the Mets really did fight hard to get back in it, and I didn't watch this game and think, oh, same old Mets. I thought, man, David Peterson gave up that grand slam and it burned them, but I really don't look at this game and think this team's going to backslide. Now, I'll knock on wood, I'll cross my fingers, I'll say I'll do all the things, but I still think this team over the final 10 games should be able to punch their ticket into October, which we're going to talk about more in the final segment as we get into the wild card update. And also we'll preview the final game of this series that's going to be played this afternoon. But what I want to do in the next segment is talk a little bit more about David Peterson. Can the Mets really trust Peterson to make a playoff start this year? We'll go through that in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Zippix. Need a boost to power through the day without reaching for another cup of coffee or an energy drink? That's where Zippix caffeine toothpicks come in. Instead of the crash you get from a sugary drink, Zippix gives you a clean, convenient burst of caffeine anytime, anywhere. If you're looking for that nicotine satisfaction, they've got Zippix nicotine toothpicks as well. I've used these caffeine toothpicks before a big meeting. I used them before I got on the golf course one day. Also long drives. I'm going to take a trip over the weekend. I'll definitely have my Zippix on hand. It's pretty surprising the extra edge that you can get without the jitters that you sometimes might get with sugary energy drinks or too much coffee. They're pocket sized, they're discreet. You can take them anywhere, and the flavors are legit. I like this. The peppermint watermelon ice. You also can find the spearmint, and it's not just energy. It actually tastes good. If you're ready to try them, go to ZippixToothpicks.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON for 10% off your first order. That's ZippixToothpicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. Zippix Toothpicks, energy and focus anytime you need it. If you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 15,000 subscribers. Also, make sure you check out the Locked On Mets postcast. Chris Schubert does a great job going live after the final out of every Mets game. For a game like today, a day game, I'll actually go live in his place to cover whatever happens as the Mets will conclude their series against the Padres. So if you want to check out that stream or any other postcast, make sure, again, you are subscribed to the channel. Now, David Peterson got absolutely no whiff in this game. So if you're wondering what went wrong, part of it is that he was not able to put batters away. And that's always going to be an issue, especially if you start falling behind and start walking guys, putting runners on base. If you aren't going to put anybody away, you can't put anybody on because you got to attack, and just try to get outs on the ground. And that's when David Peterson is at his best, when he is getting the ball on the ground. But in this game, while the Padres obviously got him in that fifth inning, I think that's been really the biggest issue for Peterson lately is the one bad inning. But through the first 4, I don't think he really pitched awful. There's a lot of soft contact. I thought he was hitting his spots pretty well. Then you get to that fifth inning, and it's 2 free passes, a hit batter, and a walk, and then a bunt base hit, which you really can't even account for or blame Peterson for. Then it's the one big swing. So I don't think that this is a game where you look at the 6 earned runs and you think, man, he just got destroyed out there. He can't trust this stuff in the zone at all. One guy put a big swing on him, but it's still part of a stretch here where David Peterson has not been very good, which is concerning because for the longest time, what were we talking about? Before Nolan McLean came up, it was if the Mets make the playoffs, David Peterson's going to get a playoff start, but who else? Now it's Nolan McLain's going to get a playoff start, but who else? And Peterson, who was an all-star this year, has been put to the back burner of that conversation a little bit. Now you have Gary Cohen on the broadcast straight up saying that the Mets maybe should put him in the bullpen for the playoffs, basically alluding to the fact that he was great in that role last year and maybe they'd be better off with somebody else in the rotation. And again, it's pretty surprising, or it would have been pretty surprising if you told us that 6 weeks ago. Because remember, there was that stat until Nolan McLain came up and finally broke the streak where the Mets did not have a starting pitcher get through 6 innings for months. But that was another starting pitcher, I should say. They didn't have a second starting pitcher to do it because David Peterson was getting through 6 with regularity. That didn't start in April. He had 5 good starts in April, but only went 6 innings once, had a 3.08 ERA, gets to May, and then he only failed to complete 6 innings once. Went 5 2/3 against the Rockies, where he allowed 1 run. Other 4 starts were all quality starts, giving up 2 earned runs or less. And he had a gem against the Dodgers where he went 7 2/3 and allowed just the 2 runs. So that was a really good start for Peterson. And that stretch carried over into June as he went 7 innings of 3-run ball 2 separate times there, which sandwiched his complete game shutout against the Nationals. Through his first 14 starts this season, Peterson had a 2.60 ERA. Now, he gave up 5 runs apiece in his final 2 starts in June, but settled right back in July, made 4 starts, pitched to a 1.05 ERA. All 4 starts were quality starts, and he gave up 1 run or less in each of those quality starts. Appears in the All-Star game that month as well. We get into August, and David Peterson in August had a 6.68 ERA. In September, he has a 7.63 ERA. So you look at the last 9 starts. This is where the season has fallen off a cliff for Peterson. But his first start after the deadline in August was actually pretty good. 6 innings of 2-run ball. So that one really wasn't the problem. Next start against the Guardians, went 6 innings, gave up 4 runs and a couple of homers. Not an awful start, but the home run ball got him in that game, which happens. Third start, gives up 6 against the Braves, couldn't make it out of the 4th. That was a bad start. Fourth start, 8 innings of 1-run ball against the Nationals, struck out 10. So now we're talking about the first 4 starts in August. And really, only one of them was terrible. One was obviously not the best, but 6 innings of 4-run ball is just 1 run away from a quality start. Now he backed up that 10 strikeout, 8-inning performance against the Nats with 5 2/3 of 2-run ball, struck out 8. Again, not that bad. You get to his last 4 starts, though. Gets knocked out after only getting 6 outs against the Marlins, gave up 8 runs, a disaster. Goes up against the Reds, gives up 4 runs in 5 1/3. Last time out against the Phillies, he was actually getting a lot of whiffs, struck out 8 through 5, gave up 3 runs. Whiff rate was 38% in that game. So where's the swing and miss? Where did it go? Well, it was there 2 starts ago. So I don't know if things are as bad as they seem with David Peterson. Obviously, this was a brutal start, but if Manny Machado gets under it, and instead of hitting a grand slam, it's a flyout, and then Peterson gets through 5 and gives up 2 runs, is the narrative the same? Probably not. Now, you can't just wash it all away and say, oh, David Peterson's great. Yeah, he has struggled. There is no doubt about it. I don't know if you can expect him to go into a playoff game and dominate. But who else do you trust more than him? Nolan McLain, that's a given. Sean Manaea showed some signs, and I like keeping him and Clay Holmes stapled together. I saw a little tidbit about how Manaea was warming up to just the 2 of us. That's pretty awesome, and maybe they can carry those vibes, and maybe that becomes a tandem that they can trust and go to the bank with throughout the rest of this season and into the playoffs. They'll probably get 2 more turns together, and if it all works out, all right, cool. Maybe that is your potential game 1 starter, one of the 2 of those guys in a tandem, because as we talked about on yesterday's show, or maybe it was 2 shows ago, the way things are lining up, Nolan McLain probably going to be unlikely to be in line to pitch that first game of the wild card round, but he would be in line to go the second game. So maybe that's it. If you get in, that's your plan. Game 1, game 2. But then who's grabbing the ball game 3? Are you trusting Kodai Senga after 2 minor league starts and we still haven't seen the second one? I'm sure it's going to come today. Is Senga going to do enough to, for one, prove himself ready to come back, which I'd assume we'll still see him in the final week of the season. And then in that one start, if it comes against the Marlins, how much are you going to take away from it? Are you going to be so impressed by 2 minor league starts and 1 start against the Marlins potentially, or maybe it is against the Cubs? It might be against the Cubs, I think, in the final game of that series at Wrigley. That's a possibility as well. And that would maybe be more impressive because that's a playoff lineup. So maybe that is the game that you have to get Kodai Senga in to see what you have. But even then, who knows if he even has a good start against Chicago? So is he the answer? If not him, then who? Jonah Tong could pitch a gem today. I would still be shocked if they're handing the ball off to Tong in October. I really would be. Brandon Sproat's been good in his first 2 starts. But his last start, he was pulled at 70 pitches because Carlos Mendoza noted a big decline in velocity. Now they're going to give him the ball again. But if that happens another time where he can't hold his velo through a start, are they going to put a prize pitching prospect out there and continue to throw him as his innings have reached a total he's never had in his professional career? Who knows? So when you actually look at all the other options, it's still hard for me to see the Mets not going to David Peterson. But another bad start could, potentially doom him. And the one thing that you can't ignore, you talk about innings, I mean, this is the most that David Peterson has ever pitched in a season. He has never been in the rotation wire to wire. Last year, he was coming off the hip surgery, and we didn't see him until the end of May. Now, he remained in the rotation from the point of his return off the IL all the way through the playoffs and looked strong the whole way through, but he threw 121 innings in the regular season last year. In the postseason, he threw 12 and a third. So add that up, not even 135 innings. Look at the other years of his career, 2022, 105 and 2/3, 2023, 111 innings pitched. This year, he's at 167 and a third. So he'll get over 170 with his next start, which will be his 30th start. Now, again, when you really look at game by game by game, I don't think it has been as bad as the ERA by month would suggest. Again, in August, a 6.68 ERA, but largely inflated by 2 awful starts. 8 earned runs in 2 innings against the Marlins, 6 earned runs in 3 1/3 against the Braves. This month, yeah, it looks really bad. At the same time, his start against the Phillies, 5 innings, struck out 8 against that lineup, gave up 3. I don't think that was the worst start in the world. So the point is, yes, David Peterson has not been very good, but he also was the guy for 4 months of the season. And I still find it hard to believe that any of these other guys are going to push him completely out of the rotation. Could I see him not starting in a wild card round if Kodai Senga just looks brilliant against the Cubs? I could see it. Could I see in a longer series them going to Brandon Sproat or Jonah Tong over David Peterson? Maybe if Sproat looks really good in his final 2 starts this month. And if Peterson looks bad. But if David Peterson has a bounce back start next time out, I still think he grabs the ball come October. We'll see, though. The Mets got to get there first. That's what we're going to talk about in the final segment. I'm going to give you your wild card update, and then we're going to preview the final game of this series. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. It's quick, it's easy. It's honestly my favorite way to follow along with football, especially because on a Sunday, you might want to go football and baseball in your lineup, and you can do that. You can go across sports with Prize Picks. And the best part, if one of your picks misses, it's not all lost. Prize Picks invented the flex play, so you can still double your money. Download the Prize Picks app and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Today's episode is also brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade, 5-Hour Energy. Their shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot, so you can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. My favorite flavor is blue raspberry, but there are so many great flavors to choose from, whether you like cherry, berry, apple bash, peach mango, and so much more. Again, 17 bold flavors, and honestly, I love how fast it kicks in. It's also sugar-free, so again, you don't have to worry about crashing later. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. If you're an everydayer that always tunes into the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. It's our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways and get a live graphic sent to your phone each day so you know who's in the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. All right, so first and foremost, your wild card update. The Giants and the Diamondbacks both were scoreless through 10 innings of their final head-to-head yesterday. And then in the 11th inning, the Giants piled on 5 runs and were able to win the game 5-1 to salvage a game in their series against the Diamondbacks. And ultimately, I think that's probably the best case scenario for that series. I think you wanted the Diamondbacks to take 2 of those games because their road ahead to me is still just so much tougher than what the Giants have. Yes, both of these teams are playing a really good team this weekend. For the Giants, they're heading to LA to face the Dodgers for 4. The Diamondbacks, though, they're going to host the Phillies, and then they're going to face the Dodgers for 3, and then they're going to close their season against the Padres. So I look at that road for the Diamondbacks, and I compare it to the Giants, who, if they have a good series against the Dodgers, they come home and they get the Cardinals and the Rockies to close out their season. And as I've said on the show before, if the Giants are not mathematically eliminated, and even worse, if they're only a game back, well, I guess because the Mets have the tiebreaker, I would say a game back going into that final series. And the Mets got to play the Marlins, and the Giants got to play the Rockies. That's going to put some pressure on the Mets. So I think you wanted the Diamondbacks to take 2 of these games because with their bullpen, I would just be surprised if they were able to go through the gauntlet that they have in front of them, particularly the Phillies and then the Dodgers, and win a bunch of games and really stay in it. You never know. It's a frisky team for sure, but I just think that the Giants have such a advantage in that final week of the season that it was good the Diamondbacks were able to take a couple games from them to open up the week. Now, the Reds beat the Cardinals, so that was worst case scenario there because the Cardinals are out of this race. So now you have the Reds and the Giants who are both 2 games back. Again, the Mets have the tiebreaker over the Giants, but the Reds have the tiebreaker over the Mets. And then the Diamondbacks, who will likely have the tiebreaker over the Mets, are a game and a half back, but they're 2 back in the loss column, only 1 back in the win column. The Reds are going to play a 4-game series starting today against the Cubs. That series is in Cincinnati, and then they're going to host the Pirates after that. So a big homestand for the Reds before they finish off their season in Milwaukee in a series that the Brewers probably will not care about. Meanwhile, you're going to have the Giants again playing against the Dodgers for 4. The Diamondbacks have an off day today before they're going to host the Phillies for 3. But with these 3 teams that are chasing you set to square off against the top 3 teams or 3 of the top 4 teams in the National League, which is, of course, the Dodgers. Well, in order, it'd probably be the Phillies, the Brewers, the Dodgers, the Cubs, or maybe the Cubs are ahead of the Dodgers. Regardless, with all those teams facing the tier 1 teams in the National League, You think there's going to be some losses over the next 4 days, and the Mets have to capitalize throughout the rest of the week. They got to win this series, and they got to find a way to stack as many wins as possible against the Nationals. So what's going to happen in the game today? You got Jonah Tong, who the Mets are entrusting a lot of confidence in to make this start. Now, their only other alternatives, they could have allowed both Holmes and Manny to start a game, but the piggyback worked. They won the first game of this series based on that strategy. The only other thing they could have done is started Brandon Sproat on 4 days rest, and then they could have gone to Kodai Senga over the weekend because Kodai Senga would not be eligible to return right now. He has not served 15 days on his minor league assignment just yet. So the Mets decided that Jonah Tong was the best option, and it's going to be interesting to see what he does against this Padres lineup. I'm excited to watch him pitch, but I'm nervous, I'll be honest, because the last start was really bad. But as David Stearns talked about to the media yesterday, or I guess as you guys are listening to this on Tuesday, 2 days ago, Stearns mentioned that one pitch and he could have gotten out of that inning and the whole start could have looked different. It was still just one bad inning. An awful inning, but only one bad inning. His first start, there was the circumstances of the two ridiculously long delays he had to wait with the Mets scoring a ton of runs for him. His second start against the Reds, he pitched pretty well. He just got burned by the home run ball. It would be a very opportune time for Jonah Tong to deliver the best start of his very young big league career and really help this team, hopefully get out to an early lead and keep it and win this series. The Mets are not going to square off against another one of the top veterans the Padres have. They saw probably the best two pitchers they have to offer with Michael King and Nick Pivetta. Dylan Cease has great stuff, not having a great year. They could have opted to pitch him on 4 days rest. Instead, they're going with Randy Vasquez, who, to his credit, has a sub-4 ERA this season and has been good, but still a guy the Mets should be able to handle here. Hopefully the lineup can score a bunch of runs, give Tong plenty of support, and maybe Tong can get the Mets through 5 or 6 innings and hand it off to a fairly rested bullpen. Edwin Diaz, Brooks Raley, Tyler Rogers, none of them have been in this series, so all of them should be good to go and hopefully really locked and loaded after their couple days rest here to pitch the Mets to a victory if it is a tight game and you need them to cover even more than just the final 3 innings of the game. If you need 1 or 2 of them to get 4 outs or something along those lines, you got to exhaust everything you can to get through this game with a victory, because over the weekend you would hope that you could, again, beat up on the Nationals. So we'll see. Now, Dom Hamill did make his big league debut on Wednesday. Imagine he's going to be granted or thanked with the ticket back to Syracuse. He didn't throw the ball that well anyway. I mean, the box score will show that he didn't give up any runs, but he was the benefit of a really good play by Juan Soto and a really bad play by Manny Machado having Elias Diaz slow up on his run home, and the Mets were able to get a tag play at second done before Diaz crossed the plate in that game. So Hamill, I don't think that he really did enough that you're going to say, let's keep him in the bullpen. They're going to make a move. My guess is Chris Devanski comes back up. Another option that I'll still throw out there is Dylan Ross. He has not pitched since September 13th, so he's well rested. It's actually 4 days rest for him. He has gone 2 innings in 5 of his last 9 appearances, and he throws over 100. I would just love to see what it looks like, but I don't know if we're actually going to see the Mets make that roster move when Devanski, to his credit, has been very good this year. That's what the Mets have on tap today. Again, I'll be going live after the game for a post-game show, a post-cast. So make sure you check that out, and then I'll have a full show for you tomorrow, breaking down the upcoming series against the Nationals and everything else on tap for the Mets, as they will at that point be down to their final 9 games of the season. But today, this is the beginning of the final 10, and the Mets got to win at least 6 of those games, I think, to make the playoffs. So starts today. Hopefully they can get a series win and carry some momentum into their weekend series. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Make sure you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that'll take you around all the action in Major League Baseball with insight from our local experts and league-wide experts that'll take you through all the games. You'll find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel as well as the Locked On MLB podcast feed.